flat, that's probably a good thing. I know some are having some trouble keeping those. If they're not causing a problem, I don't see the problem in keeping existing ones, but new ones really need to be eliminated.
Mr. KREKORIAN?
I think whether or not these are, an acceptable idea depends upon the community that you're talking about. Some communities it might be more appropriate than others, and that's why our land use and planning decisions need to be neighborhood and community specific, and not one-size-fits-all approaches to the entire city. I think as a general rule, as one of the real problems that has arisen from granny flats, so-called granny flats, is it isn't necessarily granny who's in them, but they're being used to effectively change the zoning of a neighborhood by bringing multiple families in and so on, or at minimum, creating unexpected density in an area. So in those situations, I think that's an inappropriate land use management practice. There are other areas that might find it acceptable.
Next question from Malcolm Mackey to Mr. KREKORIAN. What is your position on pot clinics? That's before the City Council.
The city's handling of marijuana dispensaries has made us a national laughingstock. It is a joke that the City Council has not been able to get a handle on this problem when cities throughout California have managed to do just fine. I support the idea of medical marijuana for compassionate use. I think people who are suffering with cancer or late-stage AIDS patients or other people who need this, it's appropriate that they should have it. That's why I supported the initiative. That's why I supported the implementing bill in the legislature. But we have more marijuana clinics than we have Starbucks in Los Angeles. San Francisco and Oakland can get by fine with just 20. So we need to regulate them. We need to make sure that we use our land use policies okay, more later, I guess.
Response?
I don't think when we passed the compassionate use law, intended for Los Angeles to be the capital of marijuana use. And in fact, it's gotten to the point where we're fairly certain that marijuana is being sold in these facilities. And this is not good for our young people. This is not good for crime in the neighborhood. And City Council really has let us down with respect to acting on this. For us to have 186 legitimate facilities, but have over 800 or 900 of them throughout the city, and especially in the East Valley, we have more than our fair share, is simply wrong. The city attorney, who's actually backing me, Carmen Jutanic, is a supporter of mine. I will work closely with him when I get to City Council to ensure we shut down all of the illegal facilities.
Next question. For this ESSEL. Have you been promised a committee seat on Plum, Planning Land Use Committee, by Eric Garcetti? If yes, will you take it? If no, why do you think you haven't been offered the committee position?
The only conversation I had was several months ago, and I think Paul's heard the same thing, that the positions that have been left open for the CD2 council member include a seat on planning and land use, and includes a seat on the Jobs and Business Development Committee, and one of us would be chair of the Neighborhoods and Education Committee. It's not something you get to turn down or accept. The City Council President says that this is how it'll be, and I actually am very excited. I think those three committees are fabulous committees, particularly the planning and land use. I have a long history and a deep understanding of those issues. I'm very excited about the Jobs Committee because it's an opportunity to help create jobs in the Valley, and I think Neighbors in Education would be a great place as well.
Response?
I guess I should have stopped talking now.
Well, yeah, I think my answer is similar. There's been a list of committees sketched out that I understand that President Garcetti has made. It hasn't been directly discussed with me either, but I'd be delighted to serve on any of those committees. In fact, I'll pretty much go wherever they want to put me, because I think in any of those positions we'll be able to make an immediate impact in changing the direction of this council and serving the needs of this community. But the Plum Committee is especially important for Sherman Oaks and Studio City and other parts of this district. So I'm very much looking forward to getting in there and finally giving a voice to neighborhoods and communities in land use decisions which are too often dominated by developers and City Hall insiders.
Mr. KREKORIAN, should neighborhood councils have appeal rights on planning matters?
Yes, of course they should. Just like any other group of neighbors that want to get together and try to take on an adverse decision that's made, of course neighborhood councils should have that authority to do. And I also think that we ought to stop this practice that the council seems to be engaging in of trying to find more and more ways to make it harder and harder for your voice to be heard. And that includes this restriction on appeals. It includes increasing the fee to file an appeal outrageously. It includes the kind of onerous financial disclosure requirements that they're trying to impose on neighborhood council members to intimidate active members of the community from participating in neighborhood councils. I think in all of those respects, we ought to respect the voice of the neighborhood councils. I'm serious.
It's a pretty good trick. What I actually put forward before the last Congress of Neighborhoods, a 6-point plan that included as point 1 that neighborhood councils should have the right to appeal motions. There had been a motion put forward at City Council. It has since expired. And now being on the Land Use Committee, that is one of the first things I will resurrect and put forward. Certainly the cost associated with it has got to be kept to such a reasonable amount that it isn't a deterrent from filing these motions.
Next question for Ms. ESSEL. What are the top 3 organizations that have expended independent expenditures on your behalf? And what relationships did you have with those organizations prior to this council race? The 3 top.
The police, Protective League is, I believe, at the top. Again, I don't, just so it's clear, independent expenditures are not something that the candidate asks for. This is a tool that the city ethics department has established as a mechanism by which groups can exercise their right to free speech. $500 is a very low dollar amount for contributions when you're trying to raise enough money to wage a viable campaign. So I know about the police. I believe that there has been a couple other, I don't watch it on a daily basis, but I believe that the IPW has done an IE. I have absolutely no relationship with those organizations. I've not met with anybody in those organizations.
Mr. KREKORIAN, your response to the question.
Yes, the top 3 independent expenditures that have spent money on Christine Essel's behalf are the police union, number 1, the DWP electricians, number 2, which have spent over $80,000 on her behalf this week alone, and construction unions, which know that she is not going to be the person who stops development in our community, but she's rather going to be the one that continues to encourage more and more density, more and more construction, more and more bulldozing of your homes to build SB 1818 apartment buildings. That's why the construction unions have invested over $50,000 in independent expenditures on her campaigns. Hasn't come my way, it's come to her. As she said earlier, that's the way politics are. Maybe she's right. Maybe that is the way politics are.
And what are the top 3 of your independent expenditures? What are the top 3 in the independent expenditures on your behalf?
The independent expenditures on my behalf, the only independent expenditure I think that I've received is from the Democratic Party. I'm proud to have the endorsement of the County Democratic Party, the San Fernando Valley Democratic Party, and just about every other Democratic Party that's weighed in this. But actually, I think they've actually communicated with members. I'm not sure if that technically counts as an independent expenditure, but I believe that's the only one that I've received. But
Ms. ESSEL, response to Mr. KREKORIAN's remark? Anything to add?
About his independent expenditure.